Hello everyone and welcome to my coloring corner. I know it's been a very long time since I have done a review, but I've been wanting to review these pencils. I just haven't had the time or the patience to do so, but I promised that I would get it done this week. It is the end of the week, but it's still this week. These are the artPOP colored pencils. These are a Blick brand that they sell at their Blick store. Uh, Bob took me to the Blick store in Portland for my birthday. And yes, I know that was a long time ago, but I finally got into these. We will be using these on our pages this weekend. So without further ado, let's take a look at them. Now, as you can see, they are a black barrel pencil with a colored tip. They are named and numbered. Well, they're named. I could have swore they had numbers on them. So this is peach. So they are named. And this one is mulberry. They're not numbered. I will probably put numbers on them later on, but they're easy enough to determine with their names. Once you get halfway through the pencil, however, once you get past the name, which is another thing that I don't like about these, the name is halfway down the pencil. So if you get, I'm going to zoom you in because I zoomed out quite far, so I'm just going to zoom you in a bit here. So when you get halfway through, you're going to end up with the name being cut off. Let's just take a look here. For some reason that looks very out of focus, which is bothering me. So down there. There we go. All right. So once you get to this point, you no longer have a name. Now there's still a lot of pencil left there. And if you're anything like me, I will use up all that pencil if I ever get to it. So that's the first thing I dislike about them. I don't like black barrel pencils. I'm not very fond of them. I do have quite a few brands of them. Castle Arts is a black barrel pencil. There's a few. Norberg and Linden, also black barrel. Cray Arts, black barrel. So there's several different black barrel pencils out there, and they're not horrible. Actually, a lot of them are really, really good. These ones are a little thinner than some of the other black barrel pencils I've used. They just feel really light in your hand, which is odd to me. I expect a pencil to have a little bit of hold to it. They do remind me of the width of the Derwent ChromaFlows. They're thin like that, which is fine as well. But let's talk about the colors. There is plenty of colors in here. I have done a swatch, and we are going to watch a swatch video. Then we're going to do some testing, our normal testing that we do on every set of pencils. Over the weekend, I will be coloring with these. We will be coloring in Rita Berman's Hidden Seasons coloring book. So this has really thick paper and quite smooth. So we'll see how well it does in that book. But without further ado, let's switch on over to the swatch. It's only going to be about 3 minutes long. Grab a drink, sit back, relax. We're going to do the swatch, and then we're going to talk about it, look at the swatch colors, and do our testing with our normal colors of red, blue, and yellow, and see what we can do with these pencils. All right, guys, so sit back, relax. It is swatch time. Alrighty, so that is the swatch, and as you can see, it's got a good selection of colors. The one thing that I did notice in here is it is green heavy, so there is a lot of green in this set. Now, normally it's a lot of these sets in the smaller sets, like a 72 set and 48 set, stuff like that, does have a lot of greens or a lot of blues. Now, in comparison, there is more green than blue, so it is definitely one of those green heavy sets, so which is great. There's some really good dirty greens here, really good dark greens, really good medium greens, and more than one light green, which I really like that idea. There is some great aquatic colors. There's some really great browns in here, everywhere from the light browns all the way into those red browns, orange browns, into the darker browns. I do wish they had a couple more of the lighter grays. I would have preferred something a little bit lighter than those, but it's workable. We can work with that. As you can see here with the white, it is more, excuse me, more of a translucent white and not very opaque at all. So it did cover some of the black on the black square. However, you can definitely see that the black square is very prominently there. So definitely not a game changer, because I like to use the white to blend with smaller sets like this, less expensive brands as this. Now this is Blick's student brand. They are premium quality in the Blick repertoire. However, they are definitely a student brand base. Well, I guess a student brand of their flagship color areas. Now, we're going to do some testing of these. So I've got my test swatch here. So definitely have all the testing things there. We're going to take the yellow. Let's see. So there's yellow, and then we're going to take red, and I need a blue. And of course it comes in these flimsy trays, which is a pain in the tuchus to get in and out of the box. And there's the blue. So literally red, yellow, and blue. There's no specialty name to them, just red, yellow, and blue. All right, we're going to get that back in the box. There we go. We're going to put the box aside. All right, I'm going to zoom you in so that you can see what I'm doing. All right. So the first one that we always do, of course, is the water resistance test. First, we're going to test the sharpening of these because they haven't been sharpened yet. So we're going to test how well they sharpen. I am going to use my Deli crank sharpener. And we're going to test this out. So did sharpen, very nice point. The wood didn't split. There seems to be a white layer underneath the black, which is a good thing that so that it strengthens that sharpen, so it doesn't flake off the paint. Okay, let's try the red. Now that was not a good sharpen. Seems that the sharpener is not holding on to the pencil very well. I think the pencil's almost too thin for the sharpener to hold on to because it's just turning. So what we're going to do is we're going to try the Doll 133. because it does usually have a better, yeah, there we go. So again, a good sharp point, no tearing in the wood. There is a bit of a bleed from the red color into the wood, but that's fine. So the Dahl 133 is working better with sharpening these. However, it is still a little bit loose in there where it's turning the pencil as well as the sharpener. All right, so interesting. Not very many of the sharpeners are or pencils are too small for that sharpener. So this one is obviously a little bit thinner than most of the other pencils that I use. I've had ones that are too big for that sharpener, but not too many that are too small for it. Alright, so there's the yellow, and it does lay down quite nicely. Actually, I must say that they did lay down a little bit better after sharpened than they did on the swatch before I sharpened them. Alright, so there's the yellow and red. They do have a bit of a thinner core than I'm used to, so it'll be great for getting into those really tight spaces. They are quite a harder pencil. I'm not seeing a lot of, well, there's a little bit of flaking going on. But that's normal in any pencil. Not putting a lot of pressure on it, but I am trying to put a little bit of pressure on it just to get that filled in. So it did take a couple of layers to get that to be completely filled in. And as you already know, I do fill that in the same as I would if I was coloring. So I do want to have that same coverage that I would expect while I'm coloring a page. All right. So definitely needs at least 2 or 3 medium pressure layers. The paper is, of course, the Nina paper, so it's going to take those layers quite well. But it is taking a couple of layers to fill in that white spot. Alright, so there is our spots. Now we do have our water pen here, and it does have water in it. So as you can see, there is water. And we're gonna, okay, so the yellow's not moving. So let's try the red. So the red moves a little bit. And then we'll try the purple, or the blue, which is going to turn purple because I had red on it. Hold on, let me wipe this off. I'm going to get that red off up there. Now the blue moves a little bit, but most of that movement is the ink from my printer. So, and not a whole lot of movement in the blue, but there is a little bit of movement in the red, no movement in the yellow. So that's pretty good. That's actually better than I thought it was going to be, which is great. So now we're going to do that smudge test. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put down the color. The same way I would expect it if I was coloring a page. The reason that I do the smudge test is because I know for my own use of colored pencils and my own skin is I will move most pencils with my skin. So when I'm coloring something and I'm moving my hand across it, I do find with certain pencils that I have to be very careful that I don't rub my hand across something that um, I haven't already sealed, because it will move that color into an area I don't want it to be. So I do the smudge test more for myself than for anything else. And I would suggest doing it for yourself because everybody's skin is different. So something that I may smudge with my skin, you may not with yours. So don't just rely on my test on whether or not things will move with my skin, because everybody's chemical makeup of their skin is different. So don't expect what's going to move with mine will definitely move with yours. So that's why I provide this test sheet on my coffee shop. This one is free for download on my coffee shop. So that when you do your swatches, or when you do want to test your pencils, you have something that you can use that gives you a good amount of information in comparison to, just winging it with the swatch chart itself. The swatch chart is a great way to learn a little bit about the color of your pencils, a little bit about the laydown of your pencils, but doing the testing on your pencils will give you a lot of information on how many layers you're going to need, how much, whether or not you're going to be able to use your water-based products such as your stickles or gel pens, things like that, and whether or not your skin is going to move that color. So yellow definitely moves. Red definitely moves. Okay, let's try this one. And believe it or not, green moves, or not green, blue moves a little bit, but not as much as the yellow and the red. Now I can bring that up here and show you. So see those movements? So they do move. All right, so let's do our blending test. So this is a 3-color blend. What we're going to test is whether or not we can go from light, medium to dark and have them blend together seamlessly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our pinks that we normally use. So we're going to use, let's use these 3. So Very Berry, so these 3. Because we're going to go with the purpley colors instead of just the pink colors, just because they're fairly close to that ability. Okay, so we're going to start with, I think the darkest is Very Berry. All right, now we're going to sharpen these just because I want to make sure that the core is fully showing. Sometimes they do put a little bit of a coating on the pencils, and I am finding that these pencils do work better after they've been sharpened. So do give them a sharpen before you use them. I always do my swatch beforehand just to see if they are able to be used, and do put out the color without sharpening, and they do that. However, I am finding that they do work better once they're sharpened. All right, now let's see. Yeah. All right, so we're going to start with Very Berry. And as you can see, it's a very small core. So we're going to have to build that color up in small areas. One thing that I find with small core pencils in doing large areas, it is a little bit more time consuming, and you have to be careful that you don't overwork the paper in those areas to build that color. Definitely not ones that you're going to be able to put down heavy amounts of. And as you can see, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on these pencils. I could try to put the pressure on them and see if it'll lay down, but with the thinness and the hardness of the core, I can feel that if I was to put a lot of pressure on this pencil, it probably would just break. And we don't want to break the tips off our pencils. It makes us cry. Well, it makes me cry anyway. um, we want to be able to build that color up, especially with an oil-based pencil, which I do believe when I talked to the guy at Blick, he said these were an oil-based pencil. They do feel like an oil-based pencil. They don't feel soft and squishy like a more softer wax-based pencil. Now, as you can see, that has taken a lot more layers than I would normally put down with a lot of my other artist grade pencils. And that's why I believe these are a lesser quality than some of the artist grade pencils that I do have. Even the black barrel ones take less amount of layering than these do. Alright, now we're going to go with this one, I think. Yeah. And I did leave a tail so that we could build into it. Of course, lighter colors are going to have less pigment and be a little bit softer. But you still have to be careful not to snap the pencil. So I'm building right into the color of the previous color to eliminate and get that blend going. If I can blend these two together and take away from that hard edge of color, that's what we want to happen. But we still need to fill in the white of the paper. Alright. And then this one here, which is Orchid. And I should have done it the other way around, but that's okay. It's actually very, very seamless in its transition. They are blending together quite well, and they are filling in that white spot together, which is good. Now I could probably put another 5 or 6 layers on this paper to fill that white spot in. I am going to try to be a little bit harder handed on the next blending area, just so that we can see if it's something that will blend with a heavier hand, because a lot of people do have that heavy hand. Alright, so I'm just going to take that medium. So I've got the light area there, and now I'm just going to fill in that medium area. Bring those two areas together. Fill in that white spot there. That's giving us that line. And then the darker area. And putting a final coating on everything, bringing everything together. And you can barely see the transition between the three colors, which is what you want to happen. So there is three different colors there. You can see the white spot, so you can see those transitions as they go down. But they're very close to the same colors. However, if I was to not blend them together, you wouldn't be able to see them as close to the same color. Alright, now we're going to do the rainbow blend. What the rainbow blend is starting off with your red going into your orange from your yellow to your green into your blue. So we're going to start with our red. And I am going to put a little bit more pressure on the pencil, so I'm going to get down a little bit closer to the paper, and I'm going to push a little bit harder so that we can get that proper red. And build that up a little bit, and then we're going to come over here and put in a tail. And then we're going to take our yellow, and we're going to start down here because we need to put in yellow down here for that to turn green. We want the yellow in the middle, and then we want the orange. So I'm pushing a little harder. So when you do red as your base to begin with, you're going to have more of a red orange, not a yellow orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that red and I'm going to come back through onto the yellow, which will give us that yellow orange. So it does definitely give us those transitions between yellow, red, and orange. Just going to blend that together a little bit with the yellow. So definitely have that transition there. Now we're going to come in with the blue. Alright, and as you can see there is the blue-green there, and now we're going to come back through with that yellow, and we're going to make that a little more of a yellow-green. So it definitely does give us that light green as well as the dark green. So we definitely have that transition between blue into green, into the yellow, into orange, and then the red. So we do have those blendabilities. I did put a little bit harder pressure on that to blend those together. However, you could easily do that with a light hand as well. Now we're going to do a blender test. So we're going to use our Caran d'Ache blender, and we're going to blend these. Now I want to do, let's do this one, this one, and this one. So I'm going to do these darker pinks, really dark pink, medium pink, and a lighter pink. So we're going to do those for our blender test. And we're going to start with the darker pink. And I didn't sharpen this, which is silly of me. I should have sharpened it. but that's okay. Make sure if you're going to use your blender, Caran d'Ache or any other blender, make sure that you have enough pigment on the page to blend together. If you don't have enough pigment on the page, no matter what pencil you're using, you're going to end up just lifting the pigment off the page. So make sure that you have enough pigment on the page to bring those blends together, so that you don't just lift it off instead of blending it. Alright, so there's our dark, our medium, and our light pinks. And you can definitely see those transition lines between the three colors. Now we're going to see if we can eliminate those transition lines with our blender. Alright, so we're going to start at the lightest color and move into the darker color. I'm going to make sure that my blender has nothing on it from anything else. And we're going to start from here. And we're going to go through here. Now that does blend those into each other. I'm not getting a huge amount of lift off, which is good. There is a little bit, but not a whole lot. So I did get those to blend from light to medium to dark. It has softened those hard edges into a softer edge. Now we're going to do the same thing on the blendability with the white. And this we're going to use that white pencil that is in the set to see if we can blend this together. Now this pencil is very translucent. If it is a more opaque white, you will get a huge change in the color that you're using. So do be careful when you are coloring and you are using your white pencil to blend. You do want to make sure that it's not an extremely opaque white if you don't want to change the color. Like you know, if you're going to blend with a Prismacolor white, your colors are going to be a lot duller than if you're going to be blending with a more translucent white. Because the translucent white is not going to dampen and dullien that color as much as if it was a more opaque. It's going to just blend the wax content in the pencil because that's what it's made of. So, alright, so we're going to start with the lightest and we're going to blend. And with blending with the white, it does give you the ability to move that wax around without too much change in the makeup of the pencil. Now I'm getting a harder line here than I had with the Caran d'Ache blender. So even though the white does work fairly well in the blending, as you can see over here, those transitions are a lot softer and smoother than here. They're a lot more jagged and more pronounced in that blend compared to this blend where that blender came into play. Now, I don't remember how much these cost. I can try to look it up, but I don't remember how much they cost. I know that it was really, really cheap for the set. Let's take a look and see if we can take a look at Blick's website and see how much they are on Blick's site. All right. Oh, of course, there's the updates. I don't want to know what's new. Blick art materials. There we go. And of course, I've got 6 million pop-ups going off all at the same time. Let's take a look. Now they do also have their Blick brand, which I really enjoy those pencils. They're a lovely pencil. Let's see if I can find these on the Blick site. So artPOP. There, no, those are pens. There we go. Okay, there we are. So they do have them on the Blick site. So these are $39.99 for a set of the 72, which is what I have. So that works out to be, so let's say $40 divided by 72. So it works out to less than 50. No, that's wrong. Clear. Okay, so less than 55 cents a pencil. So cost per pencil, they're a little on the higher side, but with comparison to other pencils that are for sale nowadays, they are on the lower price range. So cost per pencil, I would say they're not too bad. I would probably give them 3 stars, 4 stars, because they are much cheaper than some of the other ones with about the same quality. The color selection, I think they've got a really good color balance in their selection. I always want more pencils, so I'm okay with more pencils and different color selection. But for the size of set that it is, it does have a really good color selection, so I'm going to give it 5 for that. Now their color saturation, I'm going to give them a 4 for that because the color is quite saturated. However, with the pencil being thinner, you do have to layer quite a bit to get all of that white spot taken care of. They don't have open stock, so they get a 0 for that. A big fat 0 for that. So we're going to actually put an X there. Did not pass the water test, did not pass the smudge test, passed that, passed that, passed that, and was half marks there. So from what I can see on the testing that I've done, on the test sheet that I've done here, let's see, I'm going to zoom you out so you can see the full sheet. All right, there we go. So what I can say is they are a lot more water resistant than I was expecting. So I think I'm actually going to do half marks here because they did move a little bit here and here, not so much here. They did all move in the smudge test, so they definitely failed that smudge test. I have to make sure that I'm careful when coloring with them not to run my hands across something that I don't want to smudge. They did build color and blend into a seamless blend, and they did build color and blend into a rainbow using a heavier hand. They did blend extremely well with the Caran d'Ache blender, however, they didn't blend as well with the white. They did still blend a little bit, but you still have those hard lines. They didn't come together as well as they did with the blender. Like I said, the cost per pencil is about 55 cents per pencil. 72 set is $40 on Blick site. Okay, so with that, it works out to be about 0.55 cents per pencil. So at 55 cents a pencil, it's not the greatest deal out there. There are many other better priced pencils out there that have a little bit more width to the core and a little bit heavier of a pencil, a little bit more of quality, a little bit better quality than these in when it comes to the price point. Um, they do have a really, really good color selection. As you can see, I would have liked to have had more of the lighter yellows, but it does have the yellows into our oranges and our orange reds. And then another area I think it's falling short on is the reds. That we have two reds that are actual red. That was scarlet and red. And then we go into more of those cranberries, purple reds, and that sort of thing. This one here is a fairly good dark red, but it's not a pure red color. And then we have, of course, our darker reds into our purpley reds here. Skin tones, it's only got two. These ones here can be used intertwined with these just to make those skin tones a little more realistic. But there's not as many skin tones to this set, which is normal in a 72 set. And then we have the darker pinks here. We have our red violets here, and then our blue violets there. And then we go into our blues. So these are more of those lighter blues into the darker blues into those aquatic kind of colors. Aquatic blue into aquatic greens. And then we have our greens, and our greens are definitely very prominent in this set. We have three light greens. Now I want to check celery while I'm at it, because celery had a bit of something else in its core that was causing it to have a scratch area. So I do want to sharpen that one and see if we can get rid of that extra piece in the core. I don't know if I was able to get rid of it with coloring with it, or if I'll be able to get rid of it with sharpening it out. I think it was just an extra chip from one of the other pencils that was next to it. But let's see if we got rid of it. And I think I did. Excuse me. Yeah, I think it was just an extra piece of pigment from one of the other pencils that got stuck into the core during transit or things like that. But I think it's something that was easily removed. So it wasn't something exactly in the core because of the manufacturing process or anything like that. It was just something that was stuck in there. And as you can see, I was able to check that, and that green stripe, darker green stripe there, doesn't exist in this part here. So that's great. We've got three light greens in there. We've got some medium green colors into our dark greens, into our really dark greeny blues here. These are fantastic for coloring pine needles, that sort of thing. Those really dark green trees. And then we have our dirty greens there, so our olives and our marine. And then we go into those greeny browns here, and then into our browns. We've got these two here, which are great for those brick colors, fireplaces, things like that. These two colors are fantastic for that. Terracotta, great colors for those. And then we go into our grays. And like I said at the start, I am a little disappointed in the grays. I love my grays, and I don't think there's enough in here of at least the lighter grays. We've got, of course, our silver and our cool gray, but that's it. And the cool gray it has a little bit too much brown in it to be a cool gray. And then we've got these medium tone grays here, a blue gray. Sorry about that, suddenly had to sneeze. Our really dark blue gray there, and then into our dark grays and our black. So we've got a really good selection of color in this set. I do believe that they would work well for coloring anything. We can use it for pretty much anything that you would ever want to color, except for, again, I do apologize, excuse me, except for those skin tones. I think that they are lacking a little bit for doing portraits, but you can work with them and build those colors in other ways. I am not so talented to do that. I do prefer to have those colors readily available. There are many people out there that are so talented that they can take any color in the set, just the primary colors in the set, and still be able to maintain the colors they need to do those skin tones. I am not one of those people, and I will not ever say I am. Um, Most definitely Monia Gates, people like her that have that artistic ability to do that are brilliant, and I wouldn't even put myself in the same category as any of them, but they have taught me a lot, and I have seen the way that they are able to use those colors to create that skin tone and to create the lights and darks and shadows and everything else in their skin colors, and I just find it amazing. And they would be able to do that with this set. But if you are a novice, such as myself, and just starting out in coloring skin tones, I would be extremely intimidated if I was going to try to color skin tones with this set. All right. Altogether, as a budget-friendly set of pencils of 72, it is not a bad set of pencils. And like I said, we will be coloring with these all weekend. So stay tuned for that. That will give us a better bit of information on how they color in a coloring book, as well as how they stand up to coloring in that coloring book, and the tight spaces and the blends and everything else. Doing it on the swatch chart is fantastic. It gives you the beginning information. It doesn't give you as much information as it would coloring in a coloring book. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to use these pencils in a coloring book, and we're going to check them out, see how well they hold up, and then you know, on Sunday at the end of the day, I will give you some more information on how I feel about them after coloring with them for 2 days. All right, guys, so that is the artPOP from Blick. Colored pencils. They are $40, $39.99 for a set of them on Blick's website. The artPOP swatch chart is going to be available in my coffee shop fairly shortly here, probably before the end of the weekend. Um, yeah, so other than that, it's a 72 set. I always want more colors. 72 set is about as small as I ever want to go. I do have some 48s and 36s, but I don't use them very often because I do find they lack some colors that I really enjoy using a lot. The 72 set is one of the smaller sets. I prefer to stick closer to the 120 set and above, but they didn't have a set that big, so 72 had to do. But other than the fact that they are definitely a thin pencil, they're a light pencil. They do seem to color well. Their color availability is quite nice. They are fairly evenly balanced, a little heavy on the green, but otherwise they're fairly evenly balanced. I do find that, like I said, they are not as they are more water resistant than I was expecting. They do move a little bit with water, but not as much as I was expecting. However, my skin does move them, so I do have to be careful with that. But yeah, other than that, they have held up so far for the swatch and the test. Tomorrow and Sunday, I will test them further in the coloring books. They sharpened really nicely, nice clean sharpen on them, which is great. Yeah, so we'll see how they do in a coloring book on the weekend. All right, guys, with that, I would like to say thank you all very much for watching. Of course, always remember to like, comment, and subscribe to any YouTube artist that you enjoy. And of course, always remember to relax, color, and stay safe, everyone. Until next time, bye bye for now.